The music pulsed through the frat house, a chaotic symphony of bass and laughter that made the walls vibrate. I stood in the corner, clutching a red cup, watching my best friend Jake orchestrate the room like a maestro of bad decisions. Then he turned to me, his grin sharp enough to cut glass, and said, "Ethan, truth or dare?" I should have known better. Jake's dares were never innocent. They were grenades lobbed into the quiet corners of your life, designed to explode. But I was 3 beers in, and the crowd was chanting my name. So I smirked and said, "Dare. Kiss the quiet nerd in the library tomorrow," Jake declared, pointing to a guy across the room. Elliot Harper, the one nobody noticed. He was hunched over a book, glasses slipping down his nose, oblivious to the chaos. The room erupted in laughter, but something in me twisted, sharp and uneasy. By noon the next day, I was pacing the NYU library, my heart hammering like I'd run a marathon. The dare was supposed to be a joke, a quick peck to win a bet and a round of applause. Elliot was there, as always, tucked into a corner table with a stack of physics textbooks and a pencil tucked behind his ear. His brown eyes flicked up as I approached, cautious, like a deer sensing a predator. "Hey, Elliot," I said, my voice too loud in the silent library. He blinked, startled, and I realized I'd never spoken to him before. Not in 3 years of shared classes. "Can I sit?" He nodded, pushing his books aside, and I sat down, my palms sweaty. The dare burned in my mind, but his gaze soft, curious, unguarded made my throat tight. "What's up, Ethan?" he asked, his voice low, like he was afraid to disturb the air. I leaned in, my heart a traitor, and kissed him. It was quick, barely a brush of lips, but the world tilted. His breath hitched, and when I pulled back, his eyes were wide, searching mine like I'd just rewritten his universe. The library spun, and I mumbled something about class before bolting, Jake's laughter echoing in my head from last night's bet. But Elliot's stare followed me. All day. Through lectures. Through the city's hum. I felt those quiet brown eyes, holding me like I was the only one who ever meant it. The next week was torture. I avoided the library, but I couldn't avoid Elliot. He was everywhere, passing me on the quad, grabbing coffee at the shop on 8th Street. His head always down, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying the weight of the world. I'd catch his eye, and he'd look away, but not before I saw the flicker of something raw, something that made my chest ache. Jake thought it was hilarious. "You broke the nerd, man," he crowed at a party, slapping my back. "He's been staring at you like you're his knight in shining armor." The guys laughed, but I didn't. I was drowning in the memory of that kiss. The way Elliot's lips had trembled. The way I'd wanted to stay instead of run. I found him in the coffee shop one rainy afternoon. His hoodie soaked. His glasses fogged up. He was scribbling in a notebook, and I slid into the seat across from him before I could overthink it. "Hey," I said, my voice softer than I meant. "Ethan," he said, not looking up. "What do you want?" I swallowed. "I'm sorry. About the kiss. It was a dare." His pen froze. He looked up, and the hurt in his eyes hit me like a punch. "A dare," he repeated, his voice flat. "Of course." I didn't mean I started, but he cut me off. "Don't. It's fine." He stood, gathering his things, but his hands shook. I should have known. Guys like you don't just notice guys like me. "Elliot, wait." I grabbed his wrist, and he froze, his pulse racing under my fingers. It started as a dare, but it wasn't just that. Not for me. He stared at me, rain dripping from his hair, and for a moment, I thought he'd walk away. But he didn't. He sat back down, and we talked about physics, about New York, about the way the city felt alive and terrifying all at once. Hours passed, and the coffee shop emptied. But we stayed, our knees brushing under the table, our words weaving something fragile and real. By the time we left, the rain had stopped, and the city glowed under a bruised purple sky. Elliot smiled, shy but unguarded, and I knew I was in trouble. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments. Study sessions turned into late-night walks through Washington Square Park, our hands brushing but never quite holding. Elliot was a puzzle quiet, brilliant, with a laugh that felt like a gift. He told me about growing up in a small town in Ohio, where being gay was a secret you buried deep. I told him about my dad, a cop who thought tough love meant silence, and how I'd spent my life chasing approval I'd never get. One night, under the park's arch, he stopped walking and looked at me. "Why me, Ethan?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You could have anyone. Why the quiet nerd?" I wanted to tell him it was because he saw me, really saw me, in a way no one else ever had. But words failed me, so I kissed him again, this time slow, deliberate. No dares, no bets. His hands found my jacket, pulling me closer, and the world fell away. But nothing stays perfect. Jake caught wind of us, and his teasing turned sharp. "You're serious about the nerd," he said one night, his voice laced with something dark. "Careful, man. People talk." I brushed it off, but the words lingered. People did talk. I saw it in the sideways glances at frat parties, the whispers when I walked with Elliot. I wasn't out, not officially, and the weight of that secret started to crush me. One night, at a crowded bar, Jake cornered me. "You're throwing away your rep for him," he said, his breath sour with beer. "You're not one of them. Ethan, you're not gay." I wanted to punch him, to tell him he was wrong, but fear clawed at me. I'd seen what happened to guys who came out me cousin, disowned by half the family, his name erased like he'd never existed. I looked across the bar at Elliot, laughing with a friend, and my heart screamed one thing, but my head screamed another. I left without saying goodbye. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, replaying every moment with Elliot, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about quantum mechanics, the way his hand fit perfectly in mine. I'd kissed him to win a dare, but now he was the one winning me, and I was terrified. The next morning, I found him at the library, his usual spot. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept either. "You left," he said simply, not looking at me. "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I got scared." "Of what?" he asked, finally meeting my eyes. "Of me." "Of everything," I admitted. "Of what people think. Of what my dad would say. Of losing you." He stood, closing the distance between us. "You don't get to do that," he said, his voice fierce. "You don't get to kiss me, make me feel like I matter, then run because it's hard. If you're in, Ethan, be in. If not, let me go." I wanted to be in. God, I wanted it more than anything. But the world wasn't kind to guys like us, and I didn't know if I was brave enough to fight it. The library was too quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies your heartbeat. I stood there, inches from Elliot, his ultimatum hanging between us like a blade. I wanted to reach for him, to promise I'd be brave, but my throat closed around the words. "I need time," I finally said, hating how weak it sounded. Elliot's face fell, but he nodded. "Okay," he said softly, "but don't take too long. Ethan, I can't wait forever." He walked away, leaving me alone with the books and my cowardice. For days, I avoided him, burying myself in frat parties and late-night study sessions, trying to outrun the ache in my chest. But Elliot was everywhere, in the margins of my physics notes, in the quiet corners of the city, in the dreams that woke me up gasping. One afternoon, I saw him on the quad, laughing with a guy I didn't know. The stranger's hand brushed Elliot's arm, and jealousy hit me like a freight train. I turned away, but not before Elliot caught my eye. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just watched me, his gaze steady and unreadable. That night, I went to his dorm. He opened the door, surprise flickering across his face. "Ethan." "I'm an idiot," I blurted. "I'm scared, and I'm messed up, but I don't want to lose you. I'm in." "Elliot." "I'm all in." He didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at me, searching for the truth. Then he stepped aside, letting me in. His room was small, cluttered with books and posters of constellations. We sat on his bed, the silence heavy but not uncomfortable. "I grew up hiding who I am," he said finally, his voice low. "My town, it wasn't safe to be out. I promised myself I'd never hide again. But then you kissed me, and I wanted to believe it meant something." "It did," I said, my voice raw. "It does." He reached for my hand, his fingers tentative but warm. "Then don't run again," he said. "Not from me." I didn't. That night, we talked until dawn, our words peeling back layers of fear and hope. I told him about my dad's expectations, the weight of being the perfect son. He told me about his first crush, a boy in high school who'd laughed when Elliot confessed. We laughed. We cried. And somewhere in the middle, I kissed him again. And this time, it felt like a promise. But promises are fragile in a world that doesn't always bend. The next week, Jake cornered me outside the lecture hall. "People are talking." "Ethan," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You and Harper. You're not subtle." "So what?" I snapped, my pulse racing. "It's none of your business." "It is when it tanks your reputation," he shot back. "You think the guys are going to be cool with this? You think your dad's going to pat you on the back for screwing around with a guy?" I shoved past him, but his words burrowed deep. That night, I got a text from my dad. "Heard you're spending a lot of time with some kid. Focus on your grades. Ethan, don't mess this up." I didn't tell Elliot about the text. I didn't want to see the hurt in his eyes again. Instead, I threw myself into us late-night diner runs, stolen kisses in the stacks, moments where the world felt like it belonged to us. But the whispers grew louder. A guy from the frat stopped inviting me to parties. My roommate started asking pointed questions about where I'd been. One evening, Elliot and I were at a small jazz club in the village, tucked into a corner booth. The saxophone wailed, and his hand rested on my knee under the table. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." He didn't buy it, but he didn't push. Instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "You make me feel like I can be myself," he whispered. "I hope you know you can be yourself with me, too." His words cracked something open in me. But before I could respond, I saw Jake across the club, watching us. His expression wasn't angry, it was worse. It was pity. The breaking point came at a frat party. I hadn't wanted to go, but Jake insisted, saying it was a chance to set things right. Elliot came with me, his hand brushing mine as we walked in. The room was loud, crowded, the air thick with beer and tension. Halfway through the night, Jake climbed onto a table, holding a megaphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he shouted, his voice slurring. "Let's give a shout out to Ethan, who's apparently in love with the library nerd." The room went silent, then erupted in whispers. Elliot froze beside me, his face pale. I wanted to punch Jake, to drag Elliot out of there, but my feet wouldn't move. All I could see was my dad's face, my cousin's exile, the life I'd been taught to want slipping away. "Ethan," Elliot whispered, his voice shaking. "Say something." But I didn't. I stood there, silent, as the room closed in. Elliot's hand slipped from mine, and he walked out, the door slamming behind him. I found him later, sitting on a bench in Washington Square Park, his knees pulled to his chest. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice barely audible. I froze. I didn't know what to do. "You didn't stand up for me," he said, his eyes wet. "You didn't stand up for us." "I know," I said, sitting beside him. "I'm trying. Elliot, I'm trying to be brave." "Trying isn't enough," he said, his voice breaking. "I can't be your secret. I won't." He stood, and I watched him walk away, the city swallowing him whole. The days without Elliot were a slow bleed. I went through the motions classes, parties, fake smiles, but the world felt gray, like someone had drained the color from it. I'd see him in the library, his head bent over his books, and I'd want to run to him, to beg for another chance. But his words echoed in my head, "I can't be your secret." I tried to fix it. I stopped going to frat parties, ignored Jake's texts. I even called my dad, my hands shaking as I told him I was seeing someone. "A guy?" he asked, his voice cold. "You're confused, Ethan. Fix it before it ruins you." His words stung, but they didn't break me. Not this time. I was done hiding, done letting fear win. I just didn't know how to prove it to Elliot. One night, I found myself at the coffee shop where we'd first talked. It was late, the place nearly empty, and I sat at our table, tracing the grain of the wood where his hands had been. The barista, a kind-eyed woman named Mia, slid a coffee in front of me. "You look like you lost something," she said. "Someone," I corrected, my voice hoarse. She nodded, like she understood. "Then find him," she said, "and don't let go this time." I left the shop and walked to Elliot's dorm, the city buzzing around me. When he opened the door, his eyes were guarded, but he let me in. "What do you want, Ethan?" he asked, crossing his arms. "You," I said simply. "I want you, and I'm done being scared." He didn't respond, just watched me. So I kept going. I told my dad about us. He's pissed, but I don't care. I told Jake to screw off. I'm not hiding anymore. Elliot, I want to be with you, out in the open. No secrets. His expression softened, but he didn't move. "Why now?" he asked. "What changed?" "You," I said. "You changed me. You made me want to be better, braver. I love you, Elliot, and I'm not letting you go again." For a moment, I thought he'd turn me away, but then he stepped forward, his arms wrapping around me, and I buried my face in his shoulder, breathing him in. "I love you too," he whispered, and the world felt right again. We started over. Slowly. We held hands in public, ignoring the stares. We went to pride events, where Elliot's shy smile lit up under rainbow flags. But the world wasn't done testing us. One afternoon, I got a call from my dad. "I'm coming to New York," he said. "We need to talk." Panic gripped me, but Elliot squeezed my hand. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. "We'll face him together." My dad arrived the next day, his face a mask of disapproval. We met at a diner, the kind with sticky tables and endless coffee refills. Elliot sat beside me, his presence steadying me. "Ethan," my dad started, his voice low. "This thing you're doing. It's not you. You're throwing your life away. It's not a thing, I said, my voice steady. It's who I am. And Elliot's a part of that. My dad's eyes flicked to Elliot, then back to me. You're making a mistake. No, I said, my hand finding Elliot's under the table. The mistake was hiding who I am for you. He left without another word, and I felt a weight lift. Elliot squeezed my hand, his eyes shining. I'm proud of you, he said, and those words meant more than anything. But life isn't a fairy tale. A week later, I found a letter slipped under my dorm door, and signed but vicious. Fags don't belong here. My stomach dropped, but I didn't tell Elliot. I didn't want him to worry. Then it happened. Aga and a note in my backpack. Graffiti on my locker. I tried to shrug it off, but Elliot noticed. What's going on? He asked one night, his voice sharp. I showed him the notes, and his face paled. This is because of us, he said. Because of me. No, I said fiercely. This is because some people are assholes. It's not your fault. But the notes kept coming, and the whispers turned to shouts. One night, as we walked through the quad, a group of guys from the frat surrounded us. Jake wasn't with them, but I recognized their faces. You think you can just flaunt this? One of them sneered, stepping too close. Elliot tensed, but I stepped in front of him. Back off, I said, my voice low. They laughed, but they left. Elliot grabbed my arm, his eyes wide. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did, I said. I'm not letting anyone hurt you. The harassment didn't stop, but neither did we. We reported the notes to campus security, and they promised to investigate. But it felt like chasing shadows. Elliot and I grew closer, our love a quiet rebellion against the hate. We found refuge in small moments, studying together, sharing earbuds on the subway, kissing under the city's endless lights. One night, we went to a drag show in Brooklyn, the room alive with laughter and glitter. Elliot's eyes sparkled as he watched, and I realized how much he'd changed me. I wasn't the guy who kissed a nerd for a dare anymore. I was someone who loved fiercely, who fought for what mattered. But the past has a way of catching up. Jake showed up at my dorm one morning, his face pale. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough. I didn't mean for it to go this far. What are you talking about? I asked, my stomach twisting. The notes, he said. It wasn't me. But I started it. I told the guys you were with Elliot, and it got out of hand. Anger surged, but I saw the regret in his eyes. Fix it, I said, or stay the hell out of my life. He nodded, and the next day, he stood up at a frat meeting, calling out the guys who'd been harassing us. It didn't stop everything, but it was a start. Slowly, the notes tapered off, and the whispers grew quieter. Spring came, and with it, a sense of renewal. Elliot and I walked through Central Park, the cherry blossoms in bloom, their petals falling like soft promises. I never thought I'd have this, he said, his hand in mine. Someone who sees me. I always saw you, I said. I was just too dumb to realize it. He laughed, and I pulled him close, kissing him under the pink canopy. The world didn't stop to watch, and that was okay. We didn't need its approval anymore. At graduation, we stood together, our caps tilted, our futures uncertain but shared. My dad didn't come, but my mom did, and she hugged Elliot like he was her own. You make him happy, she whispered to him, and I felt my heart swell. As we tossed our caps into the air, Elliot grabbed my hand, his smile brighter than the sun. What now? He asked. Everything, I said, and I meant it. Looking back, That dare was the best mistake I ever made. It started as a game, a fleeting moment to prove something to people who didn't matter. But it gave me Elliot. And with him, I found the courage to be myself. The world isn't always kind. But love real, messy, defiant love makes it worth fighting for. Elliot and I moved into a tiny apartment in Brooklyn. Our books mingling on the shelves. Our lives tangled in the best way. We're not perfect, and the world still throws punches. But we face them together. And every time he looks at me, his quiet brown eyes holding me like I'm the only one who ever meant it, I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.